right, hey everybody. We are here to talk a little bit about mutations, just kind of as a heads up for you guys. This is your last video for the week, and we are looking to have a test on DNA and protein synthesis and mutations on Tuesday of next week. All these videos are linked to the wiki. Please feel free to go back and look at them. Use +1 time. I know Ms. Hartsock and Ms. Switzenberg can answer any of your questions that you guys might have. Just seek those things out or email me if you have questions, okay? So let's start talking a little bit about mutations. Now, when you guys think about mutations, oftentimes you think about this right here, and this picture is really kind of creepy. It's amazing the things that you can do with Photoshop these days. Okay, but this is not necessarily what's happening with mutations. You also think of X-Men. Okay, not necessarily the case. An example of a mutation that some of you guys could probably relate to is blue eyes. Blue eyes, believe it or not, was a mutation that occurred and basically is stuck around. And, you know, people with blue eyes, they're okay, right? They're not weird things like this, all right? So what exactly is a mutation? A mutation is going to be a change in the base sequence of DNA. It's basically where you have your normal strand of DNA. A mutation is when we're going to get a change in that, okay? Now, not all mutations are necessarily bad. Because DNA is so big, we actually have genes only in certain locations. So if a mutation happens to happen in an area where there is not a gene, then that's okay, all right? But if it happens where there is a gene, then that could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, okay? So what's going to cause these things? What causes mutations, all right? First and foremost, it could just be a mistake in DNA replication. All right, if you guys recall, DNA is ripped apart. We throw in matching nucleotides. DNA polymerase is actually going to go through and check that, but sometimes it can miss a mistake, okay? So it can just be a problem with DNA replication. So like if you look at this picture right up here, this is the original strand of DNA. Remember, we split it apart. This one is fine. This one, we have a little bit of a mistake, okay? We have a T put there instead of a C. All right, the other one is actually environmental agents, okay? And these are things that we might expose our bodies to. So, for example, it could be sunlight, which is UV radiation. It could be smoke, all right, or just plain and simple radiation. And some chemicals can cause this as well. So these are environmental factors that can actually damage our DNA. Sunlight, for example, when we damage our DNA, it can cause cancer, skin cancer. Cancer is actually caused by a mutation in DNA. Okay? All right, so that's how they are going to occur. All right, let's go over the two great big huge categories of them. The very first one is called a point sequence. A point sequence is basically going to be a change in one base of the DNA sequence. Okay, only one point of it, one single little spot is actually going to have a change. So a change in one base of the DNA sequence. Okay. All right, now I have a sentence here for you guys, okay? You don't have to write this down. This is just kind of a reference here for you. The fat cat ate the wee rat. If you notice, I kept it in groups of threes to keep the codon thing going on there. Yes, that is a ginormous cat. If I were to do a point mutation to this sentence right here, let's say that that C was replaced by an H, and granted, this is not DNA code here. This is just a sentence. My sentence could read, if I did have a point mutation, the fat hat ate the wee rat. If you notice, everything's kind of the same, but when I change that one word right there, it doesn't quite make sense, okay? And that's actually what's going to happen with our DNA. Yeah, we can just have one area there that can get changed, but that might not make a whole lot of sense. All right, so that is a point mutation. All right, so an example of a point mutation is something called sickle cell anemia. So under example, just simply put down sickle cell anemia. Now you guys don't need to know the if, ands, and buts about this, okay? Just know that it is an example of a point mutation. But let's talk about sickle cell anemia really quick, okay? If you guys take a look at this picture right up here, basically sickle cell anemia is going to be affecting our red blood cells. So we know that our red blood cells are inside of our blood. They're actually shaped kind of like a disc, what you see right here. And inside of that red blood cell, we have this protein called hemoglobin. You guys learned about this back in the biochem unit. Great big huge mess. This hemoglobin is inside of the red blood cell and it carries oxygen. Okay, so this is the norm. Now what's going to happen with sickle cell anemia is, and again right here, here's my normal hemoglobin, my normal red blood cells. What's going to happen with sickle cell anemia is that basically a mutation in that gene that produces that hemoglobin in our DNA has a point mutation. And what that one letter causes to happen is basically the hemoglobin does not ball up like this. It actually sticks out straight. So as a result of that, instead of having these nice round red blood cells, they actually look like a sickle, okay? They're a sickle shape. All right, and sickles were actually used back in the day to cut grass. They're kind of these weird, crazy looking tools, okay? Which is nasty, nasty, nasty stuff. All right. So if I were to show you where this is the normal DNA sequence, okay, and this is the normal amino acid sequence, which you guys have been playing with these past few days. Instead of CTC on an individual who has sickle cell anemia, we'll have CAC, which causes one wrong amino acid, okay? So just one single little mistake can cause that problem, okay? All right, let's watch a quick video clip on what is going on with this.
And as a result, our muscles, brain, and all the vital organs.
Can actually rewind a little bit from yesterday. Remember we were
In this
making
case, the end product
we were making this protein right up here, and this was hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin. The cells in our bone marrow churn out 100 trillion molecules of it per second. And as a result, our muscles, brain, and all the vital organs in our body receive the oxygen they need. Unless something stops the hemoglobin from working properly. Catrice suffers from a disease called sickle cell anemia that affects her hemoglobin.
Hello, Patrice.
It sometimes causes her a great deal of pain.
What kind of pain are you having?
Chest pain.
Chest pain? And on a pain scale from 0 to 10, what would you say that it was?
About a 9.
A 9?
The pain is worse than breaking a bone or fracturing a bone. It's a real extreme kind of pain. The only thing that comes to mind is somebody stabbing me. When the pain gets really bad, it's called a pain crisis. If it was just a normal pain crisis and they caught it before it turned into anything else, I would be in the hospital from up to 3 days to a week. But if they didn't catch it in time and it turned into something else such as pneumonia or the flu or something like that, I would be in there for a week up to a month at a time.
Have you been coughing a lot?
Mm-mm.
Have you had any trouble breathing at all?
No. I was always stopped from doing what other children did. I couldn't play in the snow all the time. I couldn't go swimming on certain days. It really took a toll on me at once because I always wanted to do it. And I'm like, well, why me? What happened here?
It's going to get into the science behind it.
The disease gets its name from what happens to Catrice's red blood cells when she experiences an attack. They become sickle-shaped, and these distorted cells get stuck in small blood vessels so that parts of the body don't get the oxygen they need. Fortunately, Catrice is okay much of the time, but she must take care not to overdo it, because the extra oxygen demands on her body might cause sickle cells to form. Catrice suffers because just a single code letter is different in her DNA.
Point mutation.
It causes a change in just one of the amino acids that make up her hemoglobin protein. The wrong amino acid makes her hemoglobin stick together, forming long fibers that distort the shape of her red blood cells. Sickle cell anemia is an inherited disease. Catrice's parents each have one copy of the gene for normal hemoglobin and one for the sickle cell kind. They get by fine. But unfortunately, Catrice inherited the faulty copy from both her parents, and so she has the disease. For now, all doctors can do is help relieve the pain. But there is hope.
Okay, which we'll get to when we start talking about genetics, okay? So that right there is going to be a point mutation, okay? Just one single thing, okay? All right, let's talk about the other one. It's called a frame shift, all right? So we'll get through this frame shift and then we're going to take a break. So frame shift is basically going to be the addition or deletion of a DNA base resulting in a different sequence of, I don't like that, of amino acids. Sorry, guys. There you go. Okay. So it's the addition or deletion of a DNA base resulting in a different sequence of amino acids. Okay. So basically, you're going to find that a lot of stuff is going to get changed on this one. Okay. It's not just going to be one single point. All right. So you write that down, and I'll give you a couple examples to help you visualize what I'm talking about. So we're going to add or delete a DNA base, which is going to result in a completely different amino acid sequence. Okay. All right. So let's go back to our sentence here. Yeah, that's a Photoshop picture. The fat cat ate the wee rat. Okay, again, chunks in 3. All right. So if I were to take away, all right, and everybody just look up here, I'm going to delete. Notice I say addition or deletion. So I'm going to get rid of that C. If I delete that C, everything is going to shift. This is why I call it a frame shift. Everything has to say in groups of 3s. So if I get rid of that C, what I'm going to get is this A is going to shift over here. I'm going to get ATA. This T is going to shift over here. I'm going to get TET. So instead of having the fat cat ate the wee rat, I would say the fat blah, 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 blah. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, okay? So that really, really, really bad, okay? Frame shift mutations are pretty nasty little things, okay? All right, if I were to show you this one right here, here's my, actually the example, let's put that down first. The example that I'm going to give you guys is something called Tay-Sachs disease. Okay, really nasty, nasty, nasty thing. So Tay-Sachs is going to be our example. If this is my normal DNA right up here, basically we're going to screw things up a little bit, okay, where we're going to add something in. We're basically, and it doesn't really matter what happens where, but if you notice, this is the normal amino acid sequence where this is what it becomes, okay, which is something completely different, okay? All right, and actually here we're going to insert 4 bases, which is pretty crazy. Okay. All right. So let me show you guys this video. Just kind of as a heads up for this video, it's pretty terrible, and especially with me just having a baby, and when I used to have to show this prior to having my baby, it would always freak me out just a little bit. Okay. Pretty nasty stuff. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but basically try to pick up on what exactly is happening with Tay-Sachs. Okay. The quality of this is pretty bad, but again, I think you get the main point.
Allison and Tim Lord are parents of 2-year-old Hayden. Okay.
The 2 things that I think of the most about Hayden, which a lot of people got from him right from the beginning, is that he was always, I thought, very funny.
I think you're very, 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 very serious to me.
I mean, he loved to smile and laugh, and he just used to guffaw. I mean, this was later when he was about a year old. He just found the funniest things hilarious, and so he and I would just crack each other up.
Hayden seemed to be developing normally for the first few months, but Allison began to notice that some things were not quite right.
I was very anxious all the time with Hayden. I sensed that something was not the same. I would see my friends changing the diaper of their child who was around the same age, their newborn, and see the physical movement and the legs moving and things like that, and Hayden didn't do that.
Happy birthday to you.
Doctors told them that Hayden was just developing a bit slowly, but by the time he turned a year old, it was clear something serious was wrong. He never crawled, he never talked, he never ate with his fingers, and he seemed to be going backwards, not progressing.
I remember the last time he laughed.
Yeah.
And I took a trip with him out to pick up a suit because we were going to a wedding that night, and we came back and it was really windy, and he just loves to feel the wind, and so we had a great time. We came back and I propped him up right here on the couch, and I was sitting next to him, and he just kind of threw his head back and laughed, like, you know, what a fun trip, you know. And that's the last time he was able to laugh. It's really hard.
It turned out that Hayden had Tay-Sachs disease, a genetic condition that slowly destroys a baby's brain.
What happens is the child appears normal at birth, and over the course of the first year begins to miss developmental milestones. So at 6 months, a child should be turning over. A child is unable to turn over, to sit up, to stand, to walk, to talk.
Tay-Sachs begins at one infinitesimal spot on the DNA ladder when just one letter goes wrong. Say this cluster of atoms is a picture of that letter. A mistake here can come down to just 4 atoms, that's it. But since genes create proteins, that error creates a problem in this protein, which is supposed to dissolve fat in the brain. So now the protein doesn't work, so fat builds up, swells the brain, and eventually strangles and crushes critical brain cells. And all of this is the result of one bad letter in that baby's DNA.
In most cases, it's a single base change, as we say, a letter difference.
One defective letter out of 3 billion, and no way to fix it. Tay-Sachs is a relentlessly progressive disease. In the years since his diagnosis, Hayden has gone blind. He can't eat solid food. It's harder and harder for him to swallow. He can't move on his own at all. And he has seizures as often as 10 times a day.
Okay. I'm going to stop it there just because I can't really make it through the whole thing. This is linked to my wiki page if you guys would like to watch the rest of it. I'm not sure that you really would because it's really kind of a downer. But that is Tay-Sachs, okay? So what exactly is happening, I think you guys probably picked up on that in the video, is that in our brain we actually are going to be producing a fat, okay? And we have enzymes that actually break down a lot of that fat. Kids that have sickle cell anemia aren't producing that enzyme. So therefore the fat builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up inside of their brain, which obviously is not a very good thing, okay? You don't really want to mess with the brain ever, all right? So that's essentially what's happening with Tay-Sachs, okay? Like I said, completely, totally a bummer video. So this is why I'm going to give you guys a break to shake it off. And then we're going to go over just a couple more specific types of mutations, and then you guys have an activity today to work through those, okay? So Ms. Hartsock, if you don't mind, if you could hit pause and give them a 2-minute stretch break, that would be fantastic. Okay, thanks. Pause. All right, guys, welcome back, okay? All right, so with that said and done, I'm going to come back to this song at the end of the notes, and let's go over some specific types of mutations, okay? All right, so no, I'm not. Let's look at this video, okay? What this video actually is that it is a song that was made by a group of students, and you might actually recognize the melody of it, and it deals with DNA, mutations, protein synthesis. It's actually really pretty good. The words are right on. So I actually enjoy it. You're going to see some video clips that should look very, very, very familiar. Ooh, that was loud. Just scared my child. All right. Okay. So it's kind of silly, but at the same time, listen to the words. It's actually pretty cool. Okay. All right. It's called Blame It on DNA. This is hilarious. The 1971 Stanford dance was a bunch of people out acting out protein synthesis. You'll see people looking like they're going crazy out in the field. That is the dance. It's kind of cool. Listen to the words. Don't pick on them. It's catchy.
Blame it on the G. If your eyes are green, 6 fingers on your hands. Blame it on the strand. Blame it on the DNA. Blame it on the adenine. Hey, you know it's in the helix. Hydrogen bond, seal it. But when it gets unraveled, it makes mRNA travel from the nuke to the cytoplasm. Ribosomes, it has them translate into amino acids, making protein. Bases dictate your races. By protein we make in transcription, translation. You're making RNA from your genes, translated into polypeptide chains, of which you got a lot of. That's essential dogma. DNA to tissue can be quite an issue. If you've got a genetic disease, blame it on the lungs. If you can't roll your tongue, blame it on the base pairs. If you got some red hair, blame it on the DNA. Blame it on the thymine. Blame it on the chromosome. Blame it on the helix. If you're hemophilic, blame it on the DNA. Blame it on the gut. Race can mutate a gene, make the wrong protein. Replace the C for a G, a point mutation, change the amino acid. The change is final. You might be an albino, depending on which genes are measured, which proteins express. This is genetic. Nitrogenous bases dictate your races. By protein we make in transcription, translation. You're making RNA in your genes all day, translated into polypeptide chains, of which you got a lot of. That's essential dogma. DNA to tissue can be quite an issue. If you've got a genetic disease. If your eyes are green, 6 fingers on your hands. Blame it on the strands. Blame it on the DNA. Blame it on the cytosine. Blame it on the chromosome. Blame it on the helix. If you're hemophilic and you can't heal it, blame it on the DNA. Blame it on the
Pretty silly. I've shown this video so much that I know the words. It's pretty sad. I could totally sing along with that. Pretty cool. All right. So hopefully that kind of lightened everything up. All right. Let's talk about different types of mutations that we have here, okay? So if you guys flip your notes over to the back, okay, I want you guys to practice with a normal strand of DNA, okay? You have this up at the very, very, very top. All right, so this is what you guys learned about yesterday. So what I want you guys to do is please give me the messenger RNA, all right, and the amino acid sequence, please. So why don't you guys take a few to do that? You need your amino acid chart out, okay? You need your amino acid chart out. So let's get that baby out. And let's find out the amino acid sequence for this. Remember, we got to put it into messenger RNA first and then into our protein. So let's go. And Ms. Hartsock, if you want to hit pause, because I'm just going to keep talking while they do this, that would be awesome. Okay, so you guys should have had enough time to get that done, I hope. All right, and so the mRNA that you should have gotten for that one is this right here. Okay, and the amino acid sequence that you guys should have gotten is this right here, met-leu-glin trip-stop. Okay, sound good? Okay, all right. So what I want you guys to do is just pay attention to these strands, right? This strand right up here. Basically what I've done at the bottom and in that chart right there is I have mutated this strand of DNA, okay, in the specific ways that I'm telling you about. All right, so obviously the first one that we have here is a point, or we actually sometimes can call it a substitution. All right, so this little strand right here is actually a point. You know what, guys? Oh, I'm giving away the answers. That ain't cool. All right, so you got your notes right here. Let me tell you what's going on here. Okay, so you just did this top part here. If you guys could, you have 3 more. Why don't you, for these 3 right now, go ahead and give me the mRNA sequence for them, okay? And what the big thing that confuses a lot of people is you're wondering what the heck I'm having you do here. This is my normal strand. I mutated it, okay? So once you give me the mRNA sequence and the amino acid sequence, I want you guys to try to circle where you saw the mutation, okay? Where specifically did it happen? Because these are examples of these particular ones. So give me the new mRNA, the new amino acid sequence, and try to find where the mutation occurred, Okay, so I want you guys to do that for each 3 of these. Now, if you notice right here, I have one little T hanging out by itself and then 2 little T's. You can't do anything with that, okay, because you just don't have one single T on your chart, your amino acid chart that codes for an amino acid, okay? So it has to be in groups of 3. So for the T and then those 2 T's, you can't do anything with it, all right? So why don't you guys take a few to do that. Ms. Hartsock, again, I'm going to ask you to hit pause, okay? And then we'll kind of go over the answers here, okay? All right. Okay, so you guys should have worked through a lot of that stuff. Here is our normal DNA, boop, boop, okay? All right, let's go with the next one. All right, what you guys should have gotten for the next one is that you should have gotten this, okay? And then you should have gotten this, all right? Where you saw your mistake is right here, okay? I think on your previous DNA it was UUG, okay? Here it's a C, and we have a different amino acid right there. This is an example of a point mutation, which is what we actually just talked about, okay? So in the table right there, let's simply just put down for a point mutation or a substitution. I don't quite know how they're going to refer to it. Just simply say a change in one base of the DNA sequence, which causes a change in only one amino acid. Okay, so we're changing one base, so therefore only one amino acid will be changed. Sickle cell anemia is an example of this, okay? So change in one base, so therefore change in one amino acid. So you do still get the wrong protein. Okay, I love this example because here it's like cat, 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 cat. Here, instead of having cat, I put a C in there, and you end up getting one wrong amino acid. All right, you guys need to make sure that you're able to recognize these because I'm going to give you a strand of these, and you got to tell me what's what on your test that's coming up. Okay, so change in one base of the DNA sequence. Okay. All right, let's go to the second one here, okay? What you had right here was, what did we have? Okay, so what you guys should have gotten here is you should have gotten this right here, okay? And you should have gotten this one right here, okay? Now, I can't really go back and circle which one it is because I don't have my notes here with me, but what you guys should have noticed is that there was an insertion of a base somewhere. I think it was, whoa, what am I doing? Okay, so one base was inserted somewhere down here, so everything shift over. All right, so that's an important thing to remember. What we call this one is that we called an insertion or an addition. So basically, we're going to add one or more bases into the DNA sequence. Okay, so you're going to add something to it. All right, and a good way that you can recognize a frame shift, which this is an example of a frame shift, is that usually you have letters kind of hanging out all by themselves. So we're adding one or more bases to the DNA sequence. Okay, all right, so right up here we got cat, 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 cat. All right, if you look down here, basically what I added is I added an A. All right, so when I add the A, everything's got to shift over. Remember, we got to stay in groups of 3. So therefore, you got all the different amino acids that are incorrect after that. Okay, the key thing is that it has to stay in 3. Remember, you can't, it has to be in 3 in order for you to use that chart. Okay, all right, and the very last one here that you guys should have had is called a deletion, which kind of speaks for itself. Okay, so you should have gotten this as your mRNA. Okay, and then you should have gotten this for your amino acid. Now, what you end up finding, or what you should have found, is that one of my DNA letters was actually deleted. Okay, it was gone, everything shifted over. So an explanation of this one right here is basically the removal of one or more base of DNA. Okay, everything that I'm going to give you guys, it's just going to be one single base. I'm not going to remove anything more than that. Okay, all right, so it's the removal or deletion of one or more bases in DNA. Okay. So what I did here is you can see that I got rid of the A. So instead of it being cat, it shifted over to CTC and everything else shifts over. So again, I got all wrong amino acids after that. Okay? So deletion is another type of a frame shift. If you notice that all the amino acids are incorrect versus one, that should help you figure out what's going on between a deletion and a frame shift and a point. Okay? All right, so that's that for those things, okay? What I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about the activity that you guys are going to do, okay? Those are your notes. Ms. Hartsock will pass this out here in 1 second. This is going to be your activity, okay? Basically, you're going to be doing a very similar thing to what we just did, okay? So right here, if everybody just looks up here, here's your original strand of DNA, Okay, I've given it to you. Give me the mRNA from that and give me the amino acid sequence, okay, using that codon sheet. All right, then I'm going to have you guys mutate them. So if you guys notice right here, I'm saying create a point mutation in the DNA by changing the first A in the first set of 3 nucleotides to a T. Okay, so this first A is right here. Everybody see that? That is your first A. Okay, right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that A to a T. So down here, I'll have TTC and then continue on with the normal AAT, GTG, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So give me the new messenger RNA code, and I ask you to circle the mutation and the new amino acid sequence. Okay? Now here, create an addition mutation by inserting a G between the first T and second A of nucleotides, okay? So the first T, inserting a G between the first T and A. So that's going to be between these guys right there. So keep in mind, when I insert that letter, everything is going to shift. It has to stay in groups of 3, okay? So if I insert, I'm not going to tell you how to do it because you guys are smart. You can figure it out, okay? And then you're going to do a deletion where you're going to remove something from that, okay? All right, so right down here, summarize what happens to the proteins for each scenario, okay? You guys oftentimes, I notice my kids doing is just writing the definitions. I want to know what happens to the protein, not to the DNA, okay? And then down here, this is actually going to be something that is very similar to your test that you're going to have on Tuesday, is I'm going to give you, and it's actually going to look pretty much identical to this. So I'm going to give you a strand of DNA. You got to give me the messenger RNA, the amino acid sequence. This is why it's so important to know how to do this. If you guys are struggling with this step right here, you got to go see Miss Witzenberg during +1. Shoot me some questions. Talk to Miss Hartsock. She can direct you in the right direction. But we got to make sure that we have this step right here, okay? So right here is a mutation of that one. So you got to find out what is the mutation, and then I'm going to have you try to identify it, okay? So it's going to be one of these 3. It's going to be a point, an addition, or a deletion, okay? Sound good? So this right here, you guys are going to start in class. It's actually going to be your homework. This is one thing that is actually going to be taken up tomorrow. So make sure that you guys get it done, and you're going to, yeah, that's that. Okay? Everybody sound good? All right. Hope all is well. And like I said, this is the last video for the week, and I will check back in with you guys sometime next week. Okay? I hope all is well, and I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. If you got questions, comments, concerns, send an email to me. I've already gotten some questions, so I'm replying to those. Okay? Hope all is well, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.